If the hallways of Steele High School could talk, they could tell this story.
Who do you not want to face? And I said, these people who are just torturing me every day.
People aren't open-minded, so anybody who's different than them, they choose to put down.
Stories of intolerance and cruelty.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of people that try to pretend that they're kidding, but deep down, at the same time, you know that they're not.
They want to make me feel like I'm not even human. I don't deserve to feel cared for. I don't deserve to feel like I belong with them.
Words of humiliation and social rejection.
Constantly, every day, every class, someone will be there trying to make fun of me or put me down or something.
I've been called a bitch, a nigger, an asshole, stupid, worthless.
On December 8th, Steele News Live asked students who have stories of bullying to come forward and speak openly in an attempt to educate others and shed light on how serious a problem bullying is at Steele. 9 courageous students were willing to reveal their painful experiences. Some are memories from the past. Others are struggles of the present. Call it ignorance, call it cruelty, call it whatever you choose. But in the end, it all adds up to one issue: bullying.
Bullying is when someone repeatedly and on purpose says or does mean or hurtful things to another person, and that person has a hard time defending himself or herself.
Todd Waltz is the owner of Campus Impact, an Amherst-based company that works with schools nationwide to educate and ultimately eliminate bullying, which comes in many forms.
Bullying could be words, it could be calling names, it could be taking people's stuff, destroying stuff, a lot of the relational behavior, relational aggression, excluding people, manipulating friendships, all of that is bullying behavior, including gossiping, name-calling, and a lot of the more frequently verbal types that we hear.
People would call me a pig. People would draw pictures of me and give me pig ears, give them pictures to me.
I've been called Adam Fagler. I've been called a faggot, gay. I've been called the school faggot.
I've been made fun of through internet. I got plenty of rumors now going about me, and there's been plenty of instances where even behind a teacher's back, I've been pushed around.
In the earlier grades, it was really more about my weight, and then in middle school, it was more about my orientation.
I was a little bit chunky, but it wasn't too bad. But I mean, it's a lot different than how I am right now, but I was made fun of for it.
Since like 7th grade, I've been like kind of verbally bullied about like being gay.
For some reason, the kids didn't like me. I still don't know why. So they would call me names and throw like their trash from their chip bags and stuff at me, and I just kind of like blow it off and just be funny about it, but they didn't like that. So the one day, this girl, she like threatened me and then she hit me in the face.
In like 2nd or 3rd grade, I started getting called, racist things, just when everyone was starting to know what the 9/11 attack was. And ever since then, I've just been getting, like harassed.
I've gone through just being made fun of, being called names, being beaten up, but it's mostly just like putting you down and like just degrading your feelings, like you're nothing, like you're worthless.
We defined bullying for 362 students using the Bully Prevention Program's definition, and then we asked several questions. 33%, or 1 in every 3 students, said they have been a victim, some in multiple ways. Of these students, 59% say they have been verbally bullied, 44% have been indirectly bullied, 18% admitted they have been physically bullied, and 16% revealed they have been cyberbullied. Mr. Gillum admits bullying occurs here, but it's not confined to school.
I think we have a problem in our society of intolerance for people who are different, or for things that people don't understand. So if there's a problem in society, there certainly is going to appear in schools.
Not all 9 who spoke with us are current victims. Some are, but for the rest, the scars remain, making coming to school unbearable.
It just feels like someone's beating you down even more, and you don't want to say anything because you don't want to seem like it's a a big deal to people, but it is a big deal.
I know they're talking about me because there's no one else in the class because they're all friends and it's just me who's the outsider.
It's like you want to be like worth something, but people just like constantly putting you down makes you feel like you're just nothing to anybody.
I feel paranoia. I feel that someone's looking over at me and laughing and giggling. I have this strange feeling where I know they're probably not laughing at me, but I have this paranoia that they are.
Each of the students we interviewed concedes that teasing and name-calling is part of growing up, but they all agree there's a point where joking around turns vicious.
I'm the first person to say that you have to laugh about yourself, and I think that there are a lot of things that are funny, but there's also a line that you can't cross, and I think that some people don't understand that.
I think a lot of kids are ignorant. They don't really know. They weren't taught to know that it's really mean.
You make fun of me, and you're the only person that does it. Okay, I'm going to look at you and say, boy, you're a pretty mean person. That's no big deal. But when the second person says it, and the third person says it, and the fourth person says it, it's like somebody walking around with holding weights on their head. You know, you have one weight on your head, and pretty soon you have 5 weights on your head, and pretty soon it just gets to be too much for a kid to handle.
Such was the case in 2007 at Mentor High School, when after years of bullying, 17-year-old Eric Mohat had reached his breaking point.
He started out his day in his math class, where just like every other day, the bullies would call him faggot, oh you're so gay, knock his books out of his hand, push him into lockers, throw things at him. Except one thing different happened on this day. The bully said to Eric, why don't you go home and shoot yourself? It's not like anyone would care. Came home, took his dad's registered pistol and shot himself. His sister opened the door and she found him. The police officer said to me, I'm sorry to tell you, your son is dead. Sorry.
Eric Mohat's bullying began with a single comment, just like all bully victims here at Seal.
If you are thinking about targeting another student, stop. Would you want to be in your target's place? Would you want your brother or sister to be in that target's place? Do you want to live with the fact that you could destroy someone?
For some, the bullying continues, but for others, the bullying has stopped and they can relate to what current victims endure while offering advice from their experiences.
Knowing that I've been in their shoes, it kind of makes me feel connected with them more because I know how they feel. I know what's going through their mind right now.
You can't please everybody, and but not everybody can be friends with everybody. So I think just be civil with each other.
Don't let people get to you, because really, are you going to talk to any of these people when you get into college and when you graduate college? Are you going to remember those people, or are you going to remember the people who helped you and who stuck up for you?
Try to forget them. Don't let it affect you. I push it aside all the time, and I don't let it affect me.
People shouldn't be afraid of what bullies are doing, because honestly, a bully has is no one better than you.
Tell someone if it gets so much that you can't handle it. Please tell someone that you trust. And don't let them be that type of person to you. No one deserves this.
In the most severe cases, the victim cannot protect themselves, and so the need for professional assistance arises. Campus Impact is currently working at Amherst Junior High School to educate students and staff with the goal to stop bullying before it begins.
We go in monthly and we do presentations with students in small groups. We rotate through classrooms. And we talk about the issues of bullying, the roles they're choosing, cyberbullying, including others, respecting others, all important components to help prevent bullying in our schools.
If you feel you are being bullied, you should first speak with your parents. There are also adults here at Steele to confide in.
If you feel that you are being bullied or that people are being intolerant of your differences, your first step would be to either come down to myself, Ms. Cornick, Mr. Haas, or one of the counselors, and come down before you get to the point where you're feeling just kind of hypersensitive to it.
So why would 9 students agree to speak on camera about their personal agony? Most want a chance to look in the camera and speak directly to their abusers. This is their opportunity.
It's more of a question, like, why would you bully somebody? Like, they don't do anything to you, but why would you just put somebody down?
They should know how it feels to be insecure about something, and that they wouldn't want people to make fun of them for their insecurities.
I hope that when people see this story, they understand that not everyone is perfect. Everyone has their own issues that they have to deal with. They're hard enough to deal with, let alone with people constantly attacking you.
You don't have to be your best friend, but be nice. You don't have a grudge against them all the time. I mean, that's going to get you nowhere in life, but just a little bit of hatred in your chest.
I think it's important for everybody to be tolerant of each other and accept each other, because in the real world, that's how we're going to make things go smoother and have a better future for ourselves.
It's my life, and I just put it aside, so whatever you say doesn't affect me anymore.
You don't necessarily know what people can go through. There are a lot of people that definitely have a thick skin and definitely hide it well, but you don't know what goes on, behind the closed doors. And they could go home and cry themselves to sleep every night and you wouldn't even know because of something you're doing.
I forgive them, and it may hurt me, but in the long run, it's them that's suffering.
To those bullies, I may have forgiven you, but other people haven't. And everyone deserves the same amount of respect. And just because you are immature does not mean that you need to take out your cruel, pitiless jokes on other people. Grow up, please.
Bullying. A topic never before addressed on Steele News Live. If you found yourself laughing or smirking during the past 10 minutes, you may be part of the problem. But the question is, will you do your part in ensuring that the hallways will have fewer stories to tell in the future? This is Allie Lewandowski for Steele News Live.
Monday, September 28th, 2015. A peaceful morning at Marion L. Steele High School. Until.
We did a big violent intruder drill. Right? It involved everybody from teachers acting as students to teachers acting as themselves, administrators acting as themselves.
He's wearing black clothes and he has a helmet on.
If you are in the north end of the building, evacuate. If you are in the north end of the building, evacuate. There is a violent intruder on the top floor of the south end of the building.
And we practiced what we would do if for some reason an active shooter would ever come to Steele High School.
When the shooter opened fire, it was extremely loud. It was scary. My heart was racing a mile a minute.
I did not expect it to be as loud as it was. I mean, it literally stung your ears.
The 7 students that I had in my classroom, we were all able to escape out the windows here.
Most of the students that I had in the classroom went out the window and went over to Powers. A couple couldn't make it, so I stayed with them, and we stayed till the end.
The students were hidden in this closet. They dragged me in there, and then they realized no one was coming, so they took this shirt, which they had originally used as a tourniquet, because I had a leg wound, and they flew it out the window.
We hung like some stuff out the window to let the law enforcement know that we were in the room.
We had the injured people go down, we had role players do what they were going to do, and then officers respond, more officers responded, EMS, fire, SWAT, bomb squad, everybody responded.
We barricaded ourselves in a room, and we kind of just waited to be saved by the SWAT team.
The SWAT used a key to get into my classroom. I had barricaded pretty well. They had to climb over things and around things to get in, and it took them 2 minutes to break into my room.
They started bringing the desks over. I was up here, and then so we just started piling everything. We didn't care, how it was getting piled. We just started throwing stuff on top of each other.
We barricaded ourselves in a classroom because we thought that there was an active shooter outside. It turned out that was just Mr. Lowe trying to get into the school. He had a backpack on, so we kind of falsely accused Mr. Lowe and started a rumor that he was a second shooter.
SWAT was out there. They came to the door. They wanted my hands up, and we moved the barricade. And then they escorted us one by one out of the classroom. It brings awareness to a situation that you hope never happens to your community or your school district.
The most I got out of the whole event was the pre-planning of it, talking to Mr. Strebel about what we were going to do with our back room.
You got to be able to stay calm and keep your head.
I think you're going to see more teachers locking their classroom than may have locked them in the past.
Being prepared is better than not having any preparedness.
I called 911, I told them what happened. I told them I was terminating the call, and then I called the dispatch right away, and I was staying.
Parents call of high school students, they should be directed to Family Fellowship for further information.
I was just reporting the injured. If you want to bring them out, go ahead.
Today was just a simulation. School administrators are very happy the way that things turned out and the way that people reacted. But one thing is for sure, they hope that they never have to do this for real.
Unfortunately, in a sad situation such as this or a tragic incident, the training to make us think of what would we do if this were to happen.
We have students and staff, that's something that always has to be our top priority. I don't know that you could ever fully prepare for a situation like this, but by doing a drill like this, we can simulate it as much as we possibly can.
But obviously, it is an incident that you hope never happens.
Fact, 86% of teens reported if abused, they would sooner tell a friend than adult.
Fact, in Ohio, approximately 80% of violent juvenile offenders and adult prisoners come from homes in which domestic violence occurs.
Domestic violence education at Marion L. Steele High School in Amherst, Ohio is a year-round initiative, and that's a fact. Meet the Teen Street Team, 42 members of the Medical Health Technology program who use a peer-led approach to educate other students about domestic violence. And it works.
Research supports that when students have a problem in a relationship, they're going to go to their friends for advice first.
So the Teen Street Team uses the knowledge they gain in class and puts it to practical use by helping other students who may be victims of domestic violence.
It comes down to, empowering our students with knowledge and becoming aware of these situations. They're kind of learning to listen and to help give the proper resources. And most of the resources include, seeking out a trusted adult.
Fact, approximately 1 in 5 female high school students reports of being physically and or sexually abused by their dating partners.
Fact, females ages 16 to 24 are more vulnerable to intimate partner violence than any other age group.
Yes, they know the facts, but the Teen Street Team does more than recite statistics. They educate their peers about domestic violence through eye-catching displays and by creating special events that foster learning through direct participation, including the Silent Witness exhibit.
Silent witness basically represents each frame and body shadow represent a victim in Lorain County of domestic violence. We also did a project called the Empty Seat. Students typed out the silent witness victims' stories, put them in a frame, and then throughout the high school we set frames out to represent that victim, as in they are missing now from society. And the hope is it engaged students in a conversation with an adult. And we host the Clothesline Project, which is survivors of sexual assault.
Amherst High School is unique in a sense that domestic violence has become a part of their everyday curriculum, which we don't have in any other school. And this display is a big piece of their commitment.
Especially at this age, when lifelong habits, opinions, and attitudes are being formed.
I see the high school as the last chance we have to have these young adults in one area and get them good, solid, sound information.
I have had students who have been on the Teen Street Team 3 or 4 or 5 years ago who still stay connected to me and have been resources and referrals.
The Teen Street Team takes their work seriously, and they know where the first step towards ending domestic violence begins.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
County 911. Yes, I am a teacher called by Texas. There is a student here with a gun.
Killed my best friend. Our hearts are broken today.
I thought we were all gonna die. Columbine, Chardon, Sandy Hook Elementary. 3 schools that bring horrific images to mind, but also bring a paramount issue to the forefront: school safety.
Well, safety is always our #1 priority. Academics are obviously very important, but safety absolutely positively is our #1 priority.
Which is always the case in the aftermath of a tragedy, but maintaining it as a priority is always a challenge.
It's not whether a high-profile incident's a wake-up call, but it's a question of whether we'll fall asleep and hit the snooze button and kick back and forget about it until there's the next crisis in the news.
Kenneth Trump is the president of National School Safety and Security Services and the foremost authority on school safety in the United States.
People are busy, and in schools the urgent drives out the important. Your principals care, your school officials care about safety, and it's important to them, but what's urgent every day is the problem that this student has, or we need to get this math test finished, and we need to get to finish these test scores and get them into the state, and all something else is happening, and then we have an activity, and then we have a pep rally and all. And what happens is that time for the safety team to meet and the crisis team to meet or to do those drills kind of gets pushed back. Okay, we'll do it tomorrow, then it's tomorrow, then it's tomorrow. And it's not until a crisis that they do it.
Is this the case here at Steele? This is what we wanted to know. How safe is our school? What improvements are being made and will continue to be made even after Sandy Hook is no longer in the news or trending on Twitter? So the first question is, how secure is our school?
Come on in.
We have cameras throughout the building. We have cameras actually when people come to sign into the building. There's Mrs. Stack buzzes them in. There's a camera she can actually see who's there before she lets them in.
Schools have a lot of policies and procedures on paper, but a lot of those aren't occurring in practice. We try to find out what's the disconnect between what you say you're doing on paper and all those big plans that school districts have and nice red manuals that set up on a shelf that are laminated, and what's really going on in the school.
In order to keep these policies updated, students from Mr. Todd's Network Communications class are being proactive. This week, they are implementing new sign-in and visitor procedures.
The first big change we're making is the visitor passes. Instead of the stickers that they're supposed to wear on their chests, we're making them physical passes, and they're going to be on a lanyard now.
To make the passes more permanent and visible to everyone. Visitors will also need to leave their ID when they sign in and will be escorted to their destination. They will no longer be allowed to walk unsupervised through the halls. And that's not the only improvement. The NCT students have printed new IDs with different colors identifying either late arrival, early release, or occupational career path students.
We're just going to make it more efficient and easier for people to sign in through the school instead of just crossing off a list. Not only is it more efficient, it's going to make it more secure.
They just scan it with a little scanner gun and it logs them in, and then you can print a report out like that.
So Amherst does have safety procedures in place, but cameras and new IDs can only do so much. Safety begins with you.
Students can be our greatest strength or our greatest weakness. Students need to treat threats seriously. If they hear somebody say something, take it seriously and report it. Students need to make sure they don't open the door for a stranger or leave a door open or come in and out and prop things open.
We can lock every door. We can have a fob to get in every door. We can have cameras all over the place. If somebody comes to the door and knocks on the door and a student lets them in, then all the other security we have is for naught.
So how easy is it for someone to get into our school? We asked 22-year-old David Cantu to knock on the back doors to see how many students would let him in. In one 5-minute class change, 9 students gave him easy access to our school. Even more alarming is this. The average time from when he knocked on the door to when a student opened it was only 6.5 seconds. The cycle kept repeating itself over and over again. So we showed Mr. Gillum.
That's certainly not very good. I mean, that this shows kind of. I mean, from an outside standpoint, we're keeping people outside, but it certainly doesn't do much good when kids are letting them in.
We set up a tripod in the front lobby for an hour, and we counted how many students were there in 1 hour. This was from 8 until 9. And we counted 315 students, not including staff, personnel, or Mrs. Stack's aides.
You have some kids who are, either for myself, Ms. Cornick, or the counselors, okay, but we certainly don't call 300 and some kids down.
Mr. Gillum's reaction is exactly why we did this. These results are shocking. 315 students in 1 hour in our halls does not keep our school secure. But hallway traffic is not the only security issue that needs fixed at Steele. Not opening a locked door is just one way students can make our school more safe. Roy Meadows is the CEO and founder of Foremost Safety Solutions. He believes that student responsibility is greater.
Well, I think the main components and what we should all be striving to be able to do is be aware to students. Tell them what you hear. If you see something on a website, tell it. If you get that information out fast enough, and there's been many a life saved, you're not a squealer or you're not that type of person, you're just saving somebody's life.
Yes, students are the greatest factor in school security. However, the faculty plays a critical role as well. Here's just one way. In 2011, the Amherst Police Department requested that all exterior windows and doors at Steele High School be numbered with room numbers. We counted 87 rooms with exterior windows. Now, just 2 years later, only 13 of the 87 windows were still numbered. This means that 74 were taken down or have disappeared. That's 85%.
Those were put in place so that in the event of a situation where we needed to pinpoint a room and we're not out there counting windows from the edge of the building over, we can actually look at that room and see that number on there. That would be pretty important for us to have.
In case of emergency, these numbers in the windows are needed to assist officers in locating specific areas of the school. Presently, our district is not taking advantage of the latest technological advances that make this critical information more readily available to first responders.
What we basically do is take blueprints that are not correct, not readable, not up to date, and convert those into colorized sections digitally that we can provide to the responders.
They include color-coded number signs on the inside and outside of every room, closet, doorway, and hallway in a school. The school is then broken down into specific color regions, and the electronic blueprints of the school's layout are instantly accessible to responders via internet, smartphones, or tablets. Foremost Safety Solutions could do this for approximately $8,000 for Steele or $30,000 for all 5 schools in our district. But technology only goes so far. A full-time armed police officer in Steele would make our school more secure. Steele actually had an officer until funding issues took him away in 2006, and having one back in the school is on every administrator's wish list.
I'm a big fan of having police in the buildings.
Is there a possibility that we could increase that visibility even more in the future? Yes, that's one of the things that that we're going to be exploring and looking at moving forward.
We're all interested in making it as safe as possible, and we'll continue. We are working with them, and we continue to do so.
Even the presence of an officer can only help so much. No amount of planning can solve every variable in the school safety equation.
I do believe we have a safe school, we have a safe community, but again, there's always those kinds of things. It could happen anywhere.
There is, in my opinion, no 100%.
As a father, I'd like to give a 100% guarantee that you could never have an incident in my kid's school, but as a safety professional, I know that there is no such thing as a 100% guarantee.
Am I able to absolutely guarantee that nothing would ever happen in the school? No, never.
That's right. There is no 100% guarantee, but everyone can do their part to make Steele High School a safer place. We're asking the city and administrators to step up and continue making a long-term investment by returning an officer to our hallways and updating our emergency response technology and policies. But, as we've heard, safety begins and ends with you. Are you doing your part? Will you do your part in the future? This is Lauren Parm for Steele News Live.
With dozens of overdoses and 3 deaths so far just this week, it appears the heroin crisis has reached a whole new level.
We want to tell you about a skyrocketing threat in suburban communities across the country tonight.
Nationally, people are talking about Ohio right now.
If you start this, you will end up in a bad place.
You're right, Ohio is at the heart of the epidemic.
I mean, we're having a heroin epidemic in Lorain County.
It's a subject matter that's all over the news.
It's rampant, it's dangerous, and we have to put a stop to it.
It's absolutely off the hook. The numbers have just grown exponentially in our communities.
It creates a high dependency.
The drug knows no boundaries.
It's highly addictive.
It's bigger than I think anyone has predicted.
They're pushing the limit to just see how high they could get.
You are going to end up in prison or in a grave.
It's very emotional when you sit there and think that could have been my child. Kids, it's your worst nightmare.
Heroin, a recreational opiate that is a public health crisis across the United States, but especially here in Ohio. According to the Columbus Dispatch, Ohio has the most heroin-related deaths in the United States, with 1 in every 9 deaths occurring right here in the Buckeye State. And Lorain County has seen a staggering rise in unintentional drug overdose deaths, from 63 in 2015 to 131 in 2016. That's more than double. And the Lorain County coroner says that the county is averaging 4 deaths per week so far in 2017.
We are going to have 120 opioid overdose deaths in this county this year.
Maybe you get a heroin overdose once every 6 months, and now we're getting like possibly in 1 week up to 20 heroin overdoses.
I don't think there's anybody in this county that hasn't been affected by this in some way.
These deaths end with heroin, but most started with another drug. The Alcohol Drug Addiction Services of Lorain County reports that 4 out of 5 heroin users start with prescription drugs.
But there's physicians out there that aren't monitoring things close enough, and it's easier to give a patient 180 Percocet than to argue with the patient.
A lot of people start with other stuff, but they keep chasing the new high, and after a while, what you took yesterday isn't going to do for you today what it did then. So you're looking for something newer, stronger, more powerful.
Part of the reason is that heroin has become cheaper than ever, and it is also available in multiple forms.
You can cut heroin with OxyContin, I think Vicodin, LSD, I mean, you can mix heroin with basically anything.
20 years ago, it was the bum that lived under the bridge. Today, it's a 17-year-old girl at Amherst. It's the 30-year-old professional lady from Lorraine. It's the 50-year-old from Rochester. It is everywhere.
Regardless of who you are, the viciously repetitive cycle of the drug is always the same.
There's probably 4 figures worth of heroin addicts in this county. I guarantee not one of them woke up today and said, "Thank God I'm a drug addict." It's a miserable life that they lead. Number one, you've got to get the money. You wake up today, you have no money, and you have no dope, because all the money you had yesterday you spent on all the dope you used yesterday.
The epidemic is only worsening here. Prevention specialist Darrell Schumpert from the Lorain County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, or LACADA, says that for every step forward in the constant battle against heroin, there are at least 3 steps back.
We at LACADA are just combating it every day, and we're doing, having great strides with it, but it's just difficult because even our law enforcement that we work with, for every death that they're seeing, there's 3 or 4 more that's coming.
Schools are being proactive in the fight against heroin. That's why Mr. Schumpert has regular hours in the Creative Learning Center here at Steele High School.
They can go in and I have kind of like a box with a notepad and some pens, and if they want to, they can just write a note and say, "Mr. Schumpert, I'd like to talk to you. I have a concern."
A Steele News Live survey of 304 students shows only a trace of heroin use. But exposure to this drug may be a problem. 118 of the 304 students surveyed, or 39%, have either seen heroin or know someone that has used the drug. So educating students and helping those who may need it take priority.
It's not always about school discipline, because sometimes someone has a problem and you want them to get help. And now that you know someone has a problem, you can help them. And there's so many different ways we can do that here at school, in Amherst, and throughout the county.
The heroin epidemic has really blown the doors off of what we've experienced or seen in the past.
No school is exempt because the heroin epidemic in Lorain County is in every community. Steele News Live contacted 6 former Steele students who are or who were in rehab for heroin addictions. But for one Steele student, rehab didn't work, and in the end, it cost him his life. 2011 Steele graduate Alex Rodriguez, or A-Rod as he was most commonly known, was a popular student and athlete with his whole life ahead of him. That was until November 8, 2013, when he and 22 others in Lorain County overdosed in one weekend on what they thought was heroin, but was actually fentanyl. 2 of the 23 died. One of them was Alex Rodriguez.
Me and Alex were, I'd say, best friends. If I had to describe him, he's a teddy bear.
A teddy bear. Until Kate says Alex began using heroin.
It's almost as if you take all the stuffing out of the teddy bear. He wasn't smiling. His contagious laugh was gone. He relied on it to keep him going every day.
Kate says Alex realized he had an addiction, so he agreed to go to rehab. Got out.
And then fell back into old ways.
And soon after, Kate's phone rang.
When she said, "A-Rod's gone," I just remember tears, and I fell to the floor.
6 years ago, Alex Rodriguez attended Steele High School. 2 years later, he passed away at age 20. He heard the warnings just like you are.
You have your whole life ahead of you. You are young. You have the possibility of college, a job, getting married, having children, traveling, and all of that can be taken away from you in a second. If I could tell Alex one thing, it would just be that I love him and that I wish I could have been there for him when he needed me.
There's a common saying among experts who deal with heroin addicts. It's that the lucky ones go to jail. And that's what happened when law enforcement in Lorain County confiscated heroin 567 times last year.
It is a felony to possess heroin. So they would go over to initially our municipal court, and then get bound over to the common police court where they would deal with that. The penalties, we can arrest someone that has heroin. I don't know that we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. That's just not going to happen.
Since they can't stop it, police in Lorain County enrolled in Project Dawn, a pilot program for first responders that teaches them how to use the life-saving drug Narcan.
Project Dawn is where officers have been trained to utilize nasal Narcan. If we're treating someone that has signs of heroin use, it will reverse the effects of heroin and opiate use.
Our experts say that while Narcan saves some lives, it's not a foolproof vaccine, and users are still dying. So the only way to truly fight the heroin epidemic is to try and slow it down with prevention through education.
Our goal at our task force really is not necessarily drug treatment, but educating the community about these are some things you can do. Lock up your medications, dispose of them properly.
I'm hoping that we are at a plateau where, hopefully with the education and the treatment facilities, that we will see a decline. Of course, I'm hopeful.
We have to fight this all together. We really have to address this. We have to make sure we've got treatment when people need it. We have to make sure that we educate everybody about the dangers of heroin and the impacts it can have on all of us.
We all have to play a part in this. Government can't pass legislation to solve this problem. We all have to do it through families and our faith and the schools and everybody reaching out to realize this is a problem. What can we do to solve it?
Heroin is a public health crisis.
Lorain County has been in the forefront in this.
It is a major problem.
It definitely is an epidemic.
Absolutely it is.
Yes, it is.
It is.
It is.
It is an epidemic in Northeast Ohio.
It's a Friday night in Amherst. Some students are at sporting events, some are at home with family, some are hanging out with friends, and others are drinking alcohol. That's an undeniable fact. Just how serious is underage drinking in Amherst? A Student News Live survey of 395 students reveals that 77% have consumed alcohol, so we wanted to get to the source. That's why we spent a Friday night riding along with the Amherst Police Department as they conducted alcohol compliance checks to see how easy it is for teenagers to purchase alcohol in Amherst. We'll show you what we observed a little later. For now, let's look at the numbers. 68% of freshmen say they have consumed alcohol and 21% have been intoxicated, and the numbers climb throughout each grade. 82% of sophomores say they have consumed alcohol and nearly a quarter have been intoxicated. The junior survey drinks slightly more than the sophomores, and again the numbers escalate as 88% of seniors say they have consumed alcohol and 54% admit they have been intoxicated. In all, of the 395 students surveyed, 77% have consumed alcohol and 45% say they have been intoxicated. We shared these survey results with experts who specialize in underage drinking prevention.
1,200 kids in that school. So what you're saying is about 500 of them reported that they had been intoxicated. Mm-hmm. And you said 75%? 77% reported they had drank. Mm-hmm. That's pretty high.
The results of that, with the 40 some odd percent being intoxicated, is shocking to me. I find that pretty high.
Our experts anticipate that some of the respondents were dishonest and the results may be slightly inaccurate, but they were still alarmed by the high percentages, and so were we. If so many students are drinking alcohol, it means they have to be getting it from somewhere, and the opportunities are everywhere.
I would say difficult is right out the window. Accessibility becomes easier and easier as time progresses. You can get alcohol from the cabinet in the house. You can get it from the refrigerator out in the garage.
We find that kids can get alcohol through older siblings, adults. It's available.
According to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, in 2015, 1 in 6 teens binge drink, yet only 1 in 100 parents know his or her child does. Another easy route is through their older friends.
Seniors usually hang around and or know more people who are 21.
so they can get it easier.
Or if there's a teenager who works at a liquor store, that's bad news all the way around. For them to even hire somebody at 18, because 18-year-olds have 17 and 16-year-old friends still.
And that temptation is why the Amherst Police Department and the STOP Task Force conduct quarterly alcohol compliance checks.
It's a check of all the local businesses that sell alcohol and to see if they're in compliance with the state standards, state mandated standards of checking IDs.
Carry your ID with you.
Saying is if you look like you're 35 or under, they should ID. So we're making sure that they're asking for IDs and that they're actually checking them.
Sergeant Murphy invited us to ride along with members of the Amherst Police Department on a Friday night as they underwent an alcohol compliance check. Here's how it works. The confidential informants, also known as a CI, are instructed to follow the same set of rules for every procedure. The CIs are required to appear as they would on an everyday basis. They are not supposed to wear clothing that makes them look older. The police don't want to persuade the clerk's judgment. No fake IDs are used, and if a clerk asks for the ID, the CI honestly states that they don't have one. If the clerk asks how old they are, the CI must give their actual birthday, thus admitting to being underage.
Because we're not trying to trick anybody. The goal is not to trick anybody. The goal is to actually try to have 18, 19-year-old people try to buy alcohol. I mean, that's the whole point of the operation.
Although the intent is not to trick the sales clerk, the CIs are equipped with hidden cameras and wires to record evidence of the transaction. This is one of the hidden cameras that the police station gives the CIs to use when they go undercover in stores. Why do they use it? So that way they can gather as much information in case the police need to cite the store. Clerks who sell alcohol to the CI are issued a citation for sales to underage persons and must appear in court. A report is also sent to the state and the business's alcohol license is cited. But there's a positive side of the alcohol compliance checks as well. The police send congratulatory letters and certificates to local businesses who follow the law, and the list of businesses who comply are released to the media.
I feel, since we've been doing them 2-3 times, sometimes 4 times a year, is actually getting these businesses made aware that they have to have these standards, they have to check these IDs.
We just got back from riding along with the Amherst Police Department, and one store sold to the CI tonight, so the store and the cashier are both getting cited.
In all, we went to 16 places and only one sold to an underage informant. So overall, the stores in Amherst are doing a pretty good job at what they're supposed to be doing.
We got this great opportunity given to us by the Amherst Police Department to go on a ride along with them tonight, and it really shows us that they are doing all they can to limit the accessibility of alcohol for underage and minors in the community.
No matter how teens obtain alcohol, there are multiple consequences. Depending on what the offense is and where it occurs, it could have an impact at school.
When a student receives consequences at school for an item, specifically if it's alcohol related, a student may be suspended up to 10 days and a recommendation for expulsion may occur as well by the building principal.
Our code of conduct indicates that there are repercussions that has to do with your first offense has to do with missing a certain percentage of your season. Your second offense would be half of the season, and then the third offense would be dismissal from that sport for the remainder of the school year.
Other alcohol-related offenses are outside of the school's jurisdiction, and the offender will have to deal with local law enforcement.
You will go to jail. You will have to post a bond in order for you to get out of jail.
Penalties for that are misdemeanor first degree, which is a punishable. The judge can assign a punishment up to 6 months in jail or a $1,000 fine, depending on your prior history and the offense itself.
Obviously, if you are underage and you drink, you can get in trouble. But what about the parents who supply the alcohol? In our survey of nearly 400 students, of those who say they drink, 1 in 4 list their family as the #1 supplier. A recent study by the Drug Free Action Alliance found that 29% of teens know of parents who host teen parties, and 25% of those teens say they have attended one of those parties in the past 2 months. Yes, parents who host lose the most.
If they're hosting the parties, they can be arrested, cited for sales to underage persons, which entails within that ordinance or revised code area, it talks about if you have a place for them to sit and have a party and you know that they're having that party, you can be held accountable. So the parent doesn't even, If they know that there's a party going on, they don't have to be partaking or even provide the alcohol. If they're providing the place to have that party, the parent can be held responsible.
Responsibility not only falls on the parents during the party, but the legal responsibility even extends to when the party is over.
Parents can be fined, parents can be jailed. There are lots of implications that occur if a person leaves the party while drunk or in an accident. The parent is held responsible and liable for that accident. If the person, for some unfortunate reason, is intoxicated and suffers some kind of serious injury, not only are the parents criminally liable, but they're also could be the subject of a civil lawsuit.
According to the National Institute of Health, underage drinking is a factor in nearly half of all teen automobile crashes and 60% of all youth suicides. That's why services like the STOP Task Force in Lorain County and LACADA, the Lorain County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, are proactive and believe that prevention first starts with education. By concentrating on environmental factors like community norms, access and availability, media messages, and policy and enforcement.
So we do environmental things. We try to not just affect individuals. We're not a treatment organization. We focus on prevention strategies. And one of those there are a series of those that are environmental.
We deal with teenagers teaching educational classes throughout the school day across the county, as well as we do a juvenile diversion class on Thursday nights through the juvenile court system, in which we help teenagers who have been, caught at school with some kind of illicit drug or some kind of inappropriate behavior involving some drugs and alcohol.
Teens and alcohol, a relationship that will always exist. In the past few years, underage drinking has been flying under the radar compared to the more publicized legalization of marijuana, prescription drug abuse, and the heroin epidemic. Yet alcohol is still the #1 drug choice for teenagers and is the biggest factor in the 3 leading causes of death amongst teens: car crashes, homicides, and suicides. The decision is yours. Why take the chance of becoming another number on a stat sheet? This is Gretchen Lasso for Stu News Live.
Diaries, the place where girls preserve their innermost thoughts. But not all diaries contain stories of first kisses, school crushes, and high school drama. Some diaries contain much deeper secrets. Diaries like the one that belongs to junior Sierra Murray.
She is trying to take away the things that make me feel the most alive, starving and cutting. I am such a fat, out of control, useless, worthless, disgusting person. I hate everything about myself. I refuse to remain the fattest, most disgusting creature I've ever seen. It shouldn't hurt me to look in the mirror. I should not want to cry every time I see my full body reflection. I don't know how to describe how I'm feeling. I guess sad, lonely, stressed, definitely suicidal. And I wish I was so different. And I hate my body, I hate my face.
A hatred so deep, it threatens her life.
I sat down on my bedroom floor and I took 60 pills and I cut one of my wrists pretty deep.
A physical and psychological battle she fights every day.
I have anorexia.
It started 3 years ago when Sierra would go days or even a week without eating, and her struggles fit the definition of anorexia.
Anorexia nervosa is a eating disorder that's defined more by a restricting type of behavior. So not eating any food or restricting the amount of food you eat in a day. Also defined by excessive exercise.
Sierra says her fight began as a reaction to overwhelming stress, and that's when a mental debate became embedded in her mind.
I go through the pros and cons of eating first. Should I eat? Should I not eat? do I need energy today or do I not? And then it goes to the type of food or how many calories I should let myself have.
So how many calories should Sierra have? To maintain a healthy body weight, the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute recommends that moderately active females consume between 1,800 and 2,200 calories per day, and it's not unusual for Sierra to consume only a fraction of that.
At first, I didn't restrict or anything, but once I saw how much I was eating, I always wanted to lower it. So every other week or so, I would lower it until I got to about 300 calories.
Or 1/6 of the recommended amount. The body goes into survival mode when it consumes so few calories, which prevents its ability to function normally.
I had 4 softball games yesterday, and I couldn't convince myself to eat. So I had 1 Diet Pop all day. And then I woke up at 3 a.m. because my hips were hurting. So I went downstairs to get some water. And by the time I got downstairs, my heart was racing so fast that I had to lay on my kitchen floor for 3 minutes before I felt safe enough to get up and walk without passing out. I mean, even though you're losing weight, there's so many bad physical things that happen that even if you think you're becoming attractive, you're really not.
Sierra is aware of the long-term health risks, so why doesn't she eat more? It's a good question, and the answer lies within her reflection.
When I look in the mirror, I can obviously see that I'm small. I can see when I haven't eaten in days and my bones are starting to show. But I can also see wherever I have fat in my body, and that's where my eyes go straight to. If there's fat on my stomach, that's all I can see. I can see that I'm small, but that's all I really focus on. And sometimes I can just stand in the mirror for an hour and just count all my flaws. And I've cried in front of the mirror before because I just couldn't take how I see myself. It's not fair that all I see is flaws.
Sierra's story is all too common. Of the 377 STEEL students we surveyed, nearly 26% say they are not satisfied with their body images. 6% admit to having an eating disorder, which is just shy of the national average of 7.8%. 2 other STEEL students with anorexia agreed to talk with us on camera. The first is JJ Bartel.
My name is JJ Bartel. I'm a senior and I cheer on varsity for the high school, and I've recently recovered from anorexia.
Just 11 months ago, senior JJ Bartel began to feel that her life was spinning out of control. So she grabbed a hold of the one thing she could manage, her eating.
This was something I could control. No one could make me do this way. You almost felt powerful, and you had this sense of success if you could go a whole day without eating.
Doctors would later diagnose her condition as anxiety-induced anorexia, and it took a traumatic moment for JJ to realize she needed help.
When I got on the floor, the adrenaline's running, you're ready to compete, you want to do well, and then I do this one skill that is super easy for me, and I fell on it. And that's when I didn't know what was happening, the room was spinning. I finished out the routine and I stumbled off the floor, and the coaches came to help me. And I didn't really relate it with food, because even after the competition, I didn't eat because I thought I already did that day. My memory was completely, because your body needs weight to keep your memory going, and mine was completely gone. I mixed up dates, I forgot normal things, and eating was one of the things I forgot.
My name is Gabrielle Richards. I'm a swimmer, I'm a chef at Lorain County JVS, and I battle with anorexia.
During her sophomore year, Gabby was admitted to Cleveland Clinic, where doctors told her she had anorexia, which deprived her of an average teenage lifestyle.
I wasn't able to go to school because of this, and I had to complete school at home, so it was really hard for me. It was kind of hard to just take school at home because I kind of had to teach myself.
Despite the losses, Gabby did what Sierra, JJ, and all other anorexics do. Ignored the warning signs and continued to risk her life.
There was the side that told me that I wasn't doing the right thing, but then there was just this bigger voice that was telling me that I should continue to weigh myself and count my calories, and that I didn't look good, and that I would look better if I did all those things. And I should have realized I wasn't doing the right thing. When you're in it, it's hard for you to realize that, like, what's right and what's actually wrong.
People suffering from an eating disorder such as anorexia cannot fight it alone. They must receive professional guidance and support from home.
The best way to stop an eating disorder is with parents. It turns out that if you're going to try to feed someone and have them stop behaviors, the best person to do it is your parents.
But even around-the-clock attention can't help a person with an eating disorder recover unless that person wants to get better and is willing to open up to somebody who has experience.
What happens a lot of times is people feel very secretive. They think they're the only one that's facing this kind of a problem, and so they become very shut down and very isolated. And part of the importance here is to open up to someone else.
If you are watching this and you're thinking, I don't have an eating disorder, but my friend may, you have a responsibility to speak up.
And I know sometimes it feels like maybe you shouldn't tell, but the truth is you're not tattling. You're not being a bad friend, you're being a great friend. What you're actually doing is saving your friend's life. And if you can do that, you have done your friend the greatest service possible.
JJ, Gabby, and Sierra all share something other than anorexia. They all wish that when they began their struggles, someone would have spoken up and shared advice like this.
If you're sitting here watching this today, that obviously means you're not stuck in a treatment center somewhere. And so you don't want it to get to that point. And for those who have been struggling with years for it, like, you need to realize there is a better chance for you.
If you feel like you have one, you need to deal with it right now because you don't want it to get worse. You need to realize that you do need help and that it's not a bad thing to get help.
Eating disorders take away everything. They take away your health, for one, which is very important. They take away your ability to focus in school. They take away your social life, especially your social life. And they could take away your life, and it's definitely not worth it to be thin.
Gabby and JJ believe their eating disorders will always be present, but the worst is in the past. For Sierra, she knows what she has to do to live a healthy life, but the fight continues between what she knows, what she needs, and what her body and mind will allow her to have.
Even though I can recover, it's still going to be in my mind. I just have to not let the eating disorder win. I have to let the positives of eating outweigh how much I want to starve or lose weight. Like, I have to realize that my health is not worth that.